My name is Miquelle West. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. I never had a chance to say goodbye to my mom other than her dropping me off to school that day and saying goodbye and me assuming that I would see her. She went to prison May 3rd, 1993, when I came home and our house was ransacked.
So you had no idea before that there might have been a problem.
Um, well, I knew something was going on because there would be strange men following us around in suit and ties.
Nobody told you your mom was in prison.
No one told me my mom was in prison. I was able to look around and see that clearly there was an issue and she wasn't there. And then I didn't, I at 10 years old, took it upon myself just not to address it either because I knew that it was too hard for my family. They began to make arrangements for me to go visit my mom because I hadn't seen my mother.
So when's the first time you saw her?
I may have been about 13 or 14. She was in Danbury, Connecticut, in a federal prison.
And you were still in Detroit.
I was living in Detroit, yes. She
Okay.
was moved all the way to Danbury, Connecticut from Michigan, opposed to a prison that is in Chicago, which is 6 hours away. She was moved 19 hours away. You know, this was the first time I saw it. You know, it's not that reality had sunk in because reality was already reality. It's just that now I had a picture of it. Like, this is what it looks like now. You know, the last time I had seen my mom, she wasn't in a khaki suit. She wasn't, behind bars. She was, driving a Mercedes and looking in workout clothes and headed to the gym.
So that was a shock to you. That was a
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah. I can just remember my mom seeing me and seeing how much I had grown in person. And I can remember seeing my mom. It was kind of like an interesting feeling because it's like, wow, that's my mom. I hadn't seen her in so long. I don't want anyone to really feel sorry for me because some people still do. I can acknowledge that people have it even harder. My story is pretty intense, but there's other people that have things worse than me. Mom had a story that was on Humans of New York where they featured maybe 10 people that are in prison and have different type of interesting cases and loopholes. And instead of her expressing everything about how she's been wronged and how the system failed her, she just pointed everyone to my social media outlet, my Instagram at Miquelle West. She pointed them there, and then the story became viral. I'm not in a place where I'm forgiving of him because he still hasn't paid his debt to society. My mom has.
They gave him literally no time in prison.
No, he went home. He went home.
Did they know he's the one who committed the murder?
Yeah, they did, and he, in exchange for the murder, he gave that story, and that's why I feel like the system is so corrupt because the gentleman again that passed, he lost his life, and if the system truly cared about him losing his life, that the triggerman should have still served some prison time. It shouldn't have been, okay, in exchange for his life, just give us some other people and try to take down an organization. Because that means we don't really care about the gentleman that passed. That just means that we're using his death as something to, as a carrot to take down an organization. If we care about the person that passed, everyone should serve them and do their time. I knew that it was drugs. Yeah.
Okay.
I mentioned it to my mom before as a small child. I wasn't exposed to anything illegal, but kids are sharp. You hear conversations as children when adults feel like you're not listening. I'm very sharp. So I always knew that my mom didn't work a 9 to 5. I'm going to be realistic about that. Like, there were times when I even said, why can't you go to work like the other kids' parents, that kind of thing. So that's how I could identify with, hey, there's an issue on May 3rd, 93, because I knew that there was some illegal dealings, feeling like, wow, I wish my mom was here. I wish I could just pause my life And because of that, that's why I haven't gone, far enough to even have children and things, because I'm still kind of like pausing my life, or a little girl at school waiting for her mom to pick her up. There's still that aspect there. This
So
was
you
over.
miss her every day.
Every day. It's like a death, but not really.
Are the other people in her case, did they get a similar amount of time? Your uncle?
My uncle, I believe, was given 17 years. Some of the other co-conspirators may have did like 16 months or something like that. And then the boyfriend at the time of my mom's, who was, I guess, considered a kingpin, he also got a life sentence.
So your mom got the toughest sentence.
My mom has 2 life sentences in 50 years. There's people that have lived life and felt a shame. And the thing is, no one's perfect. People make mistakes. That does not mean that you should just throw this person away and throw away the key and they should just rot and die. It's like, let's really, truly, if this is considered a rehabilitation, then let's really rehabilitate. I guess I had a secret when my mom was on the streets, but I still led a beautiful life, and my mom still exposed me to wonderful things and wanted the best for me. And when she went to prison, I did have a secret, and I felt that I wasn't obligated to discuss it with any kids that I went to school with, because it was my private business. And they would ask me, oh, well, why don't we see your mom? And how come we don't see your mom? And my reply would be, honestly, if you were being taken care of as well as I am, you wouldn't be concerned about my mom, because I'm not concerned about yours, because I still had a loving grandmother and a wonderful aunt, and they did everything that they could possibly do for me to compensate for the fact that my mom was not there. Yeah, I've been wearing black every day in high school, since I was in high school, because I've lost my mom to the judicial system. So yeah, there's a pain. I just express it in different ways.
What did she say to you?
Well, the scenario was actually, we were driving down the street, and there's CVS, but back then they weren't called CVS in where I was from. It was called Perry Drugs. So I asked my mom, is that where you get your drugs from? And she looked at me, stunned. And I remember I could tell that I had kind of hurt her, like there was an emotion. And then I asked her, well, are you upset with me for asking you that? And I just remember her reaction, kind of like making phone calls, probably talking to like other adults. Like, I can't believe she just asked me this, because I was very young. So, kids know. We know what our parents are doing, even when you think you don't. Now, there is violence in my mom's case, but I didn't learn about that until down the line. And then I also, down the line, I didn't know that I learned that my mom wasn't the violent person in her case, and that the person that was received immunity to tell on my mom's conspiracy with drugs. He was murdered, unfortunately, and my mom and I both expressed remorse behind his passing. And if they had chosen a different path in life, these things wouldn't have happened. So unfortunately, there's consequences that everyone suffers, and he lost his life behind this. But my mom still would deserve a second chance, because she never pulled any trigger. So right. If the trigger man can walk free for testimony regarding my mom's drug conspiracy, then my mom is deserving of a second chance as well.
And in actuality, did other people do worse than your mom, and she ended up with the worst sentence?
Yeah. Everyone played their role. Everyone played their role to some aspect, and different things.
Did anybody else testify against her in order to get less time?
I believe so. I still don't really know all of the logistics in terms of what happened in the courtroom, because I wasn't present. I can just only speak to my experience. But my mom is the one serving all of the time. No one else has these life sentences. When the area wrote it up in the paper, they only talked about my mom being sentenced to life. They didn't mention anyone else because she had the most impactful.
Do you think women are targeted differently in the judicial system?
Yeah, absolutely. I think women are targeted differently. I think races, minorities are targeted differently. I think that they like to set an example out of women.
Why do you think they let why do you think they let the Edmund go and not your mom?
Because he was the snitch. And they have a way of rewarding. Our system is kind of based on rewarding the person who tells on everyone, opposed to holding everyone to, okay, once they tell, let's still all hold them to their standards.
Did your mother wouldn't tell on anybody?
No, my mom, if you do the crime, she would say do the time. She just didn't think that she would end up with that type of time being a first time offender.
Do you more and more want her home?
Yes.
Is there a sense of urgency, like it's enough already?
Yeah, like that's after this time, after 23 years, that's exactly where I am with this. And I deal with it, but I feel like I'm a little more emotional at times about it because it's just been something that's kind of dragging on. It's different if you have a date. Then you could say, okay, well, this is a date and we're going to work on maybe lessening that date. But right now, I'm just trying to, at this point, just get my mom out.
Is it harder for you the longer the time goes?
It's not that it's harder. It's just that I feel like it affects me more. Like there's things that I don't want to do because of it. I don't want to have a kid right now because I want my mom. I don't want to bring my kid.
You want her to participate?
Yeah, I don't want to bring my kid to a visiting room and have guards looking at us and probing and calling out demands.
Does that mean you also don't really want to get married or have a relationship until she gets out?
Yeah, well,
Does
I
that
can have
prevent-
relationships in my mind. Like I'm okay with relationships, but I don't really want to go that far as to walking down the aisle.
So life is a little bit on hold.
That's how it feels. Yeah, it's on hold. Meanwhile, I'm just still focusing on a career. So that's why I can kind of engulf myself into working and maybe set an example for kids with incarcerated parents because I'm on hold with personal things.
You working with Can Do, or is there other channels you're trying to work on to get your mom out?
Any channel that's presented to me, I work on
there.
it. When I have interviews and they want to talk to me about fashion, somehow I'm still going to slide that in about where I've been because again, it's the awareness that's going to bring my mom home. It's the awareness that's going to get the laws changed. It's the awareness. That's the only thing that we can do is make people aware. When people aren't aware, people can't change things. People can't be concerned. People can't, advocate. What I have in front of me is probably the most important document that I will ever have other than maybe a birth certificate.
What's it called?
It's called a petition for executive clemency on the behalf of Miquelle West.
And Miquelle West is your mom.
Miquelle West is my mom, and freed Miquelle West. She's serving 2 life sentences and 50 years. She has already served 23 years, and it's time to free my mom. She deserves a second chance. She deserves a second opportunity at life.